it's actually sometimes good for the soul to sack a client. Yeah,
Yeah.
If that client is draining you, and you start to work out not just the physical hours you're spending on doing the work for the client, but the hours that you're spending worrying about them, and worrying about clinging on to them and keeping them happy.
Welcome to the Balanced Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Matt Southam. Here, we delve into candid conversations with entrepreneurs, exploring both their business journey and their secrets to maintaining mental well-being. As we navigate the balance of ambition and inner peace, I hope you find insights, inspiration, and invaluable takeaways in every episode. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Ian. Welcome to the show today. Let's just start by learning a little bit about you. Tell me a bit about your background.
Right. Well, I actually started I trained as a designer. That was my where I came from. I studied graphic design up in Manchester, and from there, well, I did a few little jobs and not very satisfactory ones up in the north, and then I moved down to London. At which point I actually moved into publishing. So the first jobs I had was with the Hamlin Group, and then I became art director of one of the leading paperback houses, which I really enjoyed. It was good stuff, but I realised after a while that I was an art director of one of the 5 big paperback houses, and I realised all the people were doing there were moving from one paperback house to another. And when I started thinking about the career progression, I thought, actually, is that really going to be a good thing? So I started looking at getting other strings to my bow, and I studied marketing at night school while I was there as well. So 2 things going for me. But I came to the point, which is actually where a lot of people are nowadays, that I got a board appointment. I was earning very good money. My wife was earning good money, but we couldn't really afford to live in London. It was I was in a rented flat in Ealing at the time, and I reckon that all that we could afford at the time was a coal bunker in Kilburn, which was not very exciting. So decision time, it was either go and try and find a job that would pay even more money, or move out of London for a while, because at that time I was coming up to 30. I wanted to start a family. So I looked around and found a job. I tried for quite a few, but I found a job up in the Midlands, which I didn't particularly know the Midlands at all. So I moved up there. The job didn't actually pan out as to what I was expecting, but at least I'd bought a house up there, which was good. And while I was there, my wife said, "Well, look, you've always wanted to do your own thing. Why don't you do it now?" So scratched my head and had a look at the competition, had a look at the marketplace locally, and there really weren't any particularly sparkling designers or design studios around. This was up in Staffordshire at the time, and so I thought, let's give it a go, because there were some great businesses up there. We had people like Evode and Lotus Shoes, and we had all the pottery companies, Royal Doulton and Wedgwood and people like that. So I thought, let's give it a go. So I did, and it was really successful. We grew from just being me. We had about 17 people working for us within a few years. But after about 10 years, we sort of hit the recession. At which point I realized one of the things about being in this business, in a consultancy business or whatever, is that you can grow from zero up to anywhere you like, provided you keep your debtors current with your creditors. So it's and I thought, yeah, that's great. But once the cold wind of recession starts to blow around your nether regions, you start thinking, hang about, um, I could do with a bit more stability here. So I started talking to other bigger organisations, seeing if anything that I could be doing in terms of mergers or whatever. And I ended up effectively selling the business out into a major marketing services group in the Midlands. And I then moved in there. They didn't have a design department at the time, so I set up the design company within the group. And I mean, that was a really great time because there were people. We were involved very much in business to business. A lot of the clients were people who were in construction plant, building products, and it was a fun time anyway. So we did really rather well, and I enjoyed it. And I was doing other things there, like we set up their first interactive company, the first web-based company within the group, which was really interesting. And we bought in a consultancy, a marketing consultancy, which came under my remit. And so I was doing a lot of the things that I wanted to do, but and I did that for a good few years. But it actually grew to a size where I realised that most of the work I was doing was man managing rather than the work which I've been trained for, and the actual hands-on work that I was doing. And after a good few years of that, and at the same time, the senior management had changed over, turned over a lot from the people that had employed me in the first place, and I just felt that then it was perhaps time for a change. And at the time, I then met my second wife at that time, and she worked here in London. And so I spent a lot of time wearing out motorways.
Yeah.
And it came to the point where I thought, well, what should I do? What do I really want to do? And I gave it a good hard thought and decided, well, why don't I move down to London? And so I spoke to the other director. I'd been having discussions with him for some time, and said, this is what I want to do. And said, the marketing consultancy that I was running within the company as part of my portfolio, could I buy that out of the business and take it with me? Which I said, yeah, we can talk about that and do some sort of deal. And that sounded fine to me, because what I didn't want to do anymore, I didn't want to be employing 50 or 60 people. No. I wanted to build more like a cloverleaf company where I was using outside suppliers and building up a network of people who could help me do the jobs and achieve what I wanted to achieve. So that was the model that I was looking for, and so I did that. Moved down to London, or moved down to Essex, and I had quite a few clients already who were working in around that area. So yeah, it went well. But that was when I realised the importance of networks, the importance of networking, because you almost take it for granted that your networks you grow them without realising, And I think when I was working in the Midlands, there were people there. I was getting work from people who I was in the, say in the same rugby club as they are, and people that and there were people that I'd been to college with, and all these sorts of things. And that's where the network just grew organically. And when you move geographically, it's a lot of those will stay with you, but you lose those little connections again. And so I spent a lot of time networking. I still do. I realize that is I think the core of the the core of the business, which is, I guess, how I met you as well.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is really. I mean, you've had quite the journey there. There's been lots going on, but I want to talk a little bit about networking because obviously we've both got a marketing background, and we all know that businesses and even people need to do certain amount of networking. But nothing can almost beat just that little connections you've got with people that you see every week, or like you say, you meet from the rugby club or whatever it is. It's those relationships that actually can bring you some of the the biggest clients, and it's that real challenge of selling marketing as a service and everything that's needed, and joining it together with also knowing that sometimes you just happen to win a bit of work because the person liked you, there was a connection, they had that conversation, and it goes that way. And it's a KPI you can't necessarily track in the same way as you would any other business metric.
Yeah, that's I think that's absolutely true, and I think that people often sort of just underestimate the value of their natural network. I mean, obviously, you're not going to be selling your services to members of your family and and people down the road, but at the same time, it's those people who know other people, and the network grows. And I don't think you can ever relax and sit back on and neglect your network. I think you've just got to keep polishing that network, and then probably it's fun. And I realise that you probably realise the same thing as when you're chasing new business. You usually know probably at the first meeting whether you're going to get on with those people or not. And I don't mean just get the business from them. I found I wasted a lot of time with working with clients who I didn't really get on with. They didn't understand me. I didn't understand them. It was purely a commercial relationship, and that is always going to be mainly dominated by price and product. Whereas really, it's the ones who you meet, and the chemistry is there, and you think, oh, yeah, I like this guy.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, I don't feel there's anything wrong with, chasing up leads, chasing proposals, things like that. That's all okay. But there comes a point where if you're really trying to persuade someone to work with you, whereas you've met someone and actually you're going to be a great fit, you get on with them, they work well, and yes, times don't always line up, or the budget doesn't line up, and they don't necessarily always work with you, but there's potential for a long-lasting relationship, or something might come back, or they might recommend you, whereas there are those other jobs and you sort of think, this is sending the wrong signals. The amount of times I'm having to chase it and we're not really getting on and they're not responding. Actually, it's not the right fit.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that recognizing that, acknowledging it, and taking the right action. Somebody once said to me, it's actually sometimes good for the soul to sack a client. If that client is draining you, and you start to work out not just the physical hours you're spending on doing the work for the client, but the hours that you're spending worrying about them, and worrying about clinging on to them and keeping them happy, and it's all a bit artificial. And I think that sometimes it's best just to either let those relationships slip away, or find some reason to say, actually, I'm moving in a slightly different direction, but I know somebody who can help you, and pass them on to somebody else. And that's often the way to
it can feel quite liberating, can't it? To sort of, you say fire a client or sack a client, but it just move away, because it's not. You made the really good point there. It's not necessarily the time spent doing the work. It's like, yes, we can do that work. It's the headspace, thinking about the client, the communication, all those other bits that actually play on your mind outside of doing the work. And it's like, well, hang on, I wanted to do the work and get paid, and here I am in the evening worrying about it, and I'm not even working on the project.
Yeah, I actually found that with at one point, it was a client who was my biggest client, And okay, it wasn't the people that I'd started working with that particular company. It was, they changed marketing directors and whatever, and it was just getting difficult. It was getting difficult, but they were still my biggest client, and I knew that at some point, whether it was me sacking them or them sacking me, but we were going to be parting company, and so I spent a lot of time worrying about, if they go, where am I going to replace that income and that revenue and whatever. And eventually, when it came to the point where we did part company, and I actually sort of then looked at it over the next few months and realized actually they weren't as profitable as the revenue was there, but the profit wasn't as, you know, they pared us down to the bone in terms of the costs and in terms of the invoices and whatever. And in actual fact, losing them was not that serious. It didn't
No.
actually. When it came to the crunch, it'd be a big chunk of revenue and a big chunk of income in the book, but in actual fact, it was a tiny bit of profit there. And
Yeah, and it's not. I mean, what's the saying? Sort of, turnover for vanity, profit for sanity. And often it has been that thing. I've had some really large projects on, actually, because they've gone on 8, 9, 10, 12 months. Actually, and then I break it down. I would have been better just working on some smaller projects that turn over quickly, they get done, and yeah, you chase those large ones, but they're not always as profitable as you may initially think when you see the initial figure.
yep, yes, yeah, absolutely. It's very easy for someone to dangle that big carrot in front of you, and yeah, oh yes, your eyes light up, and it's almost like the cartoon, isn't it? The hand
Yeah.
eyes.
Yeah. But it doesn't always line up. But with regard to sort of, networking and that, I mean, with regard to marketing, and we're talking about branding, but the big buzz, lots of people are about personal branding now as well. And that is where, certainly maybe since COVID, when maybe we weren't getting out and about as much, it moved online, and actually people have got the ability to create content to almost brand themselves and therefore build up a little bit of those relationships. I've certainly, I follow some people on social media, and I feel I know them enough to actually trust them to deliver some work, even though I've never actually met them or spoken to them in person.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, for many years, I took the view of yes, it's even though I'm running the company, but it's not me. I should be selling the company. I should be selling the company brand, and and it almost seems to be self-indulgent to promote yourself there. That you can pull back off that, but I think not. When I say things have changed, I think that what has changed really is, social media for one thing. That has made a dramatic change in terms of how we look at people and how we look at businesses, and that yeah, they do want to see you and they want to talk to you, and some of the work I've been doing on LinkedIn. Yeah, putting posts up on LinkedIn, and I found that when I looked back on them, the ones which seemed to get the most traction, or certainly the most clicks on now, were the ones where I appeared on, even, I'm not saying a video clip, but just a photograph. Sometimes we spend a lot of time putting together a nicely crafted image, or sort of a sort of gimmicky infographic, to grab people's attention. And in actual fact, people didn't seem to click those. It didn't seem to resonate. What people resonated with was the personal touch, that they wanted to talk to a person, which I found, that seemed to be an increasing trend over, and yes, it makes a lot of sense, and so I certainly changed the view on that in terms of least putting myself up.
Putting yourself out there. Yeah.
And I think it's also one of the other things which has go out, and I've talked to a few people about this, is in our business where we're working on a consultancy side, it's the business is changing much more now to an advice run business. Taking marketing, for example, a lot of the stuff that you could do, the hands-on stuff, if you like, the operational stuff, now can be done often by clients themselves. They in a way that bit of marketing has become de-skilled in terms of everybody looks, oh yeah, I can sling a video together, I can put an Instagram post up, and yeah, we could do that. We could do a bit of our own SEO, and people. I mean, okay, this is mainly with the SMB. They're small to medium businesses that we work with. The bigger they get, obviously you're needing very specialist skills. Yeah. But if you're certainly down at the let's say at street level, the people most of the stuff they can do themselves. So what they're wanting is not so much the actual operational skills, but they're wanting the advice and help and guidance and pointing in particular directions. So we certainly seem to be selling advice more. Advice, mentoring seem to be taking a very important place in what people are looking for. So that's when people tend to be looking for the people. If you're looking for an advisor, in the old days you could go to the Boston Consulting Group or whoever, but much more now it seems to be it's the person. I want the person who can help me with this. I want the person who can advise me, who can give me that particular advice, and in many cases that's very profitable and very enjoyable work to do. So I think that's what I'm finding, so I've had to certainly rethink I should say the direction of personal branding and spend more time putting my ugly face up there on.
It is true though. I mean, sometimes the posts, that whether it's a combination of the content I've written or whatever, but the image I've used is literally a selfie I've taken on my phone during a morning walk. There's no extra lighting. I haven't set up a camera. There's no tripod. I'm not in my best clothes. I'm in a hoodie or something because it's cold out. And they're the ones that seem to, but people, seem to capture their attention and I guess connect. But you're right with regard to, talking about the consultancy and advice and mentorship, certainly in that SMB or SME market, because we're talking about AI maybe, but certainly the just even without AI, just the tools that are available to people to put stuff together. And I speak to a lot of graphic designers who, the idea of Canva almost makes them feel a bit icky. If it's not done in Photoshop or Illustrator, they don't want to know. But that has enabled people to produce content that I would say is, when I say good enough, it for what the market is they're serving and the size of their business, and it might be a sole trader. Actually, it looks okay. You don't need to get a design studio in for that. Of course, if you're a multinational, you're going to want someone working on it. But these tools have become available that actually have enabled people to create the content, but probably not understand the messaging and the marketing sort of psychology behind it. And that's where that advice, mentorship and consulting comes in, I guess.
Yeah. And you just following on from what you were saying there, I mean, one of the things which I've been in the business a good few years, and so I've noticed how history repeats itself in terms of how technology affects us. And you could go back to when desktop publishing first arrived, and designers who'd been working with their magic markers and their rotring pens and whatever. It's a no, it's never going to come up to the standard. The desktop publishing, it's just for people. It's just like Word documents. It's good for that, but nothing more than that. And then probably 5 years later, everybody is learning desktop publishing skills. So they're all using the various packages. Everybody wants to learn them, and that's what colleges are teaching. So that's the way things happen. I suppose when digital cameras first arrived, and your photographers were saying, but you'll never have the quality, that you get from shooting on film. It's and the skill that's required, to light a shot and all this sort of thing. And a few years, they're all shooting digital. They're all using Photoshop and whatever to, and again, the skill level comes right down in terms of what's required to produce a practically good enough image or practically good enough piece of print for the, as far as the marketing is concerned. So this is how things are changing, and to turn around and say, but it'll never replace. It will.
It will.
If it's as good as and cheaper and easier, people
we do things happen. I mean, I've got a background in DJing, and I remember carrying boxes and boxes of records. I remember flying abroad with boxes of 12-inch records, and people started to move a little bit into CDs, but even CDs were sort of looked down upon, certainly by the vinyl sort of DJs. And then suddenly now all the big DJs who were playing vinyl actually carry a USB stick now. And that's what you need. It's all on a USB. You just put it in the CDJ, as they're called, and play. And yes, there's still vinyl nights and a throwback to that lovely seeing a bit of vinyl spinning. But actually, things did move on. It suddenly it is, because the music was made on a computer and transferred straight over to a gig stick and could be played that night. You didn't have to wait for pressing a vinyl and anything like that. You could literally make stuff in a hotel room and then play it in a club or a festival that weekend.
Yeah, and I think that underlines what the important thing is, which you getting right down to the basics. And the important thing is actually the idea. Because that's another thing which I'm really sort of interested in, is the fact of the actual creativity. And I think that's it was always the way. So I know when I was working in advertising with ad agencies, they would the creative directors come up with ideas, and all they would do would be just write a headline on a layout pad or scamp a little image, and that was it. Then they'd pass that on to the visualizers in the studio, and then the production department and whatever, and it'd turn into an ad for, I don't know, Heineken or British Airways or whatever. But the important thing there was the idea at the start. All the rest of it was just, we used to call it wrist work. In other words, drawing and painting and colouring in and that sort of stuff. And that, I think, is really what we're getting down to now. And I think AI is one of the things that will also add to that stripping out of the, the operational skills. And what is going to still be required there is the original idea, which AI just, you cannot imagine AI coming up with some of the great, if you think of some of the great ads that you looked at, that's brilliant. The ones that tug at your heart or make you laugh and really make you want to get out there and look at that product. That idea, which is worth millions, I think, to come up with that idea. That's the part of the business where I think that people should be swinging back to, and I look a lot at the some of the the top art directors and the top creatives that are working, and a lot of them are still working, but what they're doing now, are they're almost working in the advisor sort of guru. If you can go to a top creative who was probably sold his agency a few years ago, and he's now just sitting there and come here, and you can speak to him and say, "Give me 6 ideas for this." You wouldn't say that. You wouldn't be so crass as that, but
no.
Sort of thing that he could come up with those ideas so quickly, and I just see that as being missing now, that people don't really understand creativity. Someone will I see people posting stuff on the web which they think is, here's a great ad headline, and yes, I can see what they've done. They've played with words, and you think, okay, yeah, it's a clever pun, but what does it do? How does it make me get interested in the product? What does it make me want to do next?
How does it make you feel? That's the and trying to tap into emotion or generate an emotion with someone from your ad is the goal.
Yep, you do that, and some of the best ads. I know when people were talking a while ago about lager advertising. I say lager, to be quite honest, it's a commodity. There's lots of brands, and the difference between the brands is, I'm sure lager drinkers would say, "Oh, no." No, to be honest, it was a bit like it was a bit like cigarette advertising today. Just one brand of cigarettes and another was, just how long it would take them to kill you. But it's with lager, it was so such a commodity product. And if you look at some of the best advertising, some of the most creative stuff was done for lager advertising. Some of the headlines and things that people came up with, people will still remember for days, from years ago, from things like, you're probably the finest lager in the world, and that refreshes the parts other beers can't. Those, and some of those campaigns, and they're still using that same approach. And if you've got something which is a commodity, I was always told, if you've got a big benefit in a product, shout it loud, right? But if it's a commodity, then you've got to use showmanship.
Yeah.
And the showmanship which is used in advertising, like the lager advertising, produced some of the most stunning advertising that was around, and everybody had a good laugh. Have you seen the latest Heineken ad or whatever, and seen the latest Carlsberg ad, so those sorts of things were really great. And that's, as you said, is the ones that tug at your emotions. They either make you smile, they make you laugh, they maybe make you have a little tear, but they tug at the heartstrings. But those ads are, so those creative ideas, and I'm watching with interest to see how that comes out of the current fascination with AI, whether it's going to be people going to be trying to use AI to generate creativity, or whether they're actually going to say, "Oh yeah, AI's in this box, it will actually flesh out the idea, but I've got to give it this. We've got to give it the spark." So how do you teach people to come up with that spark of creativity, that genius idea? It can be done. Everybody is born with the ability to do that, but it's almost taught out of us.
I was going to say that because actually, I've got 2 young daughters. They're growing up a bit now. The youngest is 7, but I've witnessed them play. With toys and make up stories and do whatever the game is, and play with dollies and things like that. And we clearly have that imagination, when we're born, and that individualism and all of those bits. And then as we go on, we sort of learn to conform slightly, don't we? We know that at school, you do something right, you get praised. Do something wrong, well, that's bad. And then because of that, we always just want to do what's right, and just get that quick bit of praise, and maybe not take a risk of something that someone might not like. Whereas when you're a child and you're playing your own game, you're on an adventure. So you are right. We do seem to lose it as we grow up.
Yeah. There's an interesting bit of research done, and it was this was a good few years ago, but some American scientists who were working for NASA, they realized that when astronauts are up there in space, if things went wrong, they were going to have to fix it themselves. So they needed, skills for having original thought to, in other words, come up with ways of solving something that perhaps nobody else had ever thought of before. So they came up with a pile of tests that they used. So when potential astronauts were coming along, that they would see how good they were at coming up with totally fresh, totally new ideas. So, and the psychologists who'd prepared those tests thought, I wonder what would happen if we did these same tests on children. And so they got a cohort of children, and with those children, they started with the children when they were, I think the first cohort, they were under 5. And they found that just a random selection of children under 5, and they did the same tests on them. And as far as coming up with creative, innovative, completely new ideas, they scored as high as the top astronauts had scored.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then they took the same kids at 10 years old, and their scores had dropped by something like 60%. And then they looked them again at about 16, and they dropped again dramatically. And by the time those same kids were 21, they were just the same as everybody else. So in other words, they'd actually had that ability, we were born with it, but it had been washed out by society. And people had to relearn the astronauts had to relearn those skills, they be reprogrammed almost to get those sort of skills in them. So yeah, we can all do it. It's not, I'm not creative at all, people say. Well, you are. So creativity.
You've just adapted to the world that we're currently in, and you haven't embraced your individual fault, I guess.
Yes. No. So creativity can be taught. There are ways of teaching creativity, and I think that will probably be the next big thing, which has been revealed, if you like, with AI coming in. Where are we going to? What can't AI do? Well, it can't come up with the creative ideas. Well, then maybe we need to be teaching people how to be creative again.
Yeah.
How to come up with completely fresh, new, additional ideas that haven't been thought of before, and build creative cultures within companies. Simple things like allow people to make mistakes, and because that's all that it is. Like kids, because they've got no concept of what happens if they make a mistake. They will just do things and won't worry about making a mistake. But pretty soon, that's when the teachers will be like, "Oh no, you've done that wrong."
Yeah. It's actually just found a way that it doesn't work. It's just reframing it. I mean, you've had quite a long career, and you must have gone through some of that. I mean, how have you dealt with the ups and downs of business? Because there obviously have been some tough times. And then you said you went for a period where there was, the recession was hitting and things like that. What advice do you give to people to get through that?
Mhm. Difficult, because you almost don't know until it comes how you're going to deal with it, and it's what your personal resilience is. And again, I suppose you got another question there. Can you teach resilience?
Yeah.
It's it's a difficult one. I think actually this I'm sure this goes back a lot to what we were talking about as far as networking is concerned. I think that having a strong social network, a strong social support group, people who will support you,
Yeah.
that's when you realize that things things that matter are not necessarily the business things. It's almost like saying that somebody could, I don't know, their business could fail, and oh well, yeah, their mate says, oh well, never mind, come on, let's go down the pub,
Yeah.
let's yeah yeah, or yeah, let's your partner can say, let's get away for the weekend, let's go and once that it's almost like once the thing has happened, people can, that's when you realize what the important things are. And sometimes people put way too much, I should say, so too much power on the results of, or the impacts of failure. And it's a matter of getting their head around the fact of, well, actually, we can deal with this. This is not that important. And if this goes that way, well, yeah, that's not terribly good. But if it goes the other way, well, that's. I mean, I heard a great presentation by Gerald Ratner. You remember the?
Yeah.
And it was a lovely thing. He began his speech by saying, I get really I get. My apologies if I'm paraphrasing totally wrong. I get really cross when people talk about that. They say the disaster of Ratner's. When I said that we sell tat, whatever, and he said, and I get really cross when people go on about that, because he said, because I've had far bigger disasters than that. And so and he then started to talk about some of these even bigger disasters, and I think that is one of the things that we as a society, it's how we deal with failure, how we deal with business failures, and psychologically how we deal with it. And I think that nowadays we are getting a bit better. I think we're probably getting a lot better, and looking at people and looking at the well-being, looking at how we deal with failures and problems that people have, either in their business, in their career, or it's. I'm hopeful that we're actually caring more about people, and I think that if you do have people around you that care about you, that you will get that support. I saw the great play just recently, Dear England, about Gareth Southgate.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that was a really interesting study in, if you like, his failure with penalty.
He missed the penalty in 96. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to come back from that.
Absolutely. And it was a great play in terms of the learning that came out of that, and also the way that he then applied that learning as a manager for creating the team spirit and the team buzz and the team ethos. So you know, I think that there will be, and I'm hoping that there will be it will be a kinder place in for people, to, and I say, I think, going back to what I said earlier about creativity, and that creativity requires us to say, yeah, no, we can do it. Yeah, we can try it. Don't worry. Coming up with a daft idea, it may not be so daft. So having the brainstorming sessions where anything goes, you can say anything. Not being afraid to be the one who says, "Can't we do this?" Don't be daft. That'll never work. Yeah, we've tried. That doesn't work. No, 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 no. Give me a sensible solution. Wiping all
Yeah,
that sort of criticism out can be great, because what people worry about most, I think, about in failure is what other people think of them.
completely. Yeah, yeah.
And and if they realise that, well, people are actually pretty good, they're quite nice, and they won't think the worst of you just because you make a mistake, or you fail here or fail there. It's they'll still be there. So don't worry about what other people are going to think. And that's where it can be a lonely place, running a business, particularly with small businessmen who. Yeah, I say it's great to have a great network, but if you're spending all your time on the business, you don't spend much time with other people,
No,
um, and so yeah, it's almost a contradiction, really, that you need to be spending time away from the business, off the business. You need the downtime to make you realise that actually, yeah, the business is pretty important, but it's not all important.
no. And you often see growth when you actually step away and get some headspace, and then it allows some creative ideas and things like that. I mean, I regularly know my best ideas never come when I'm sat at my desk. They very rarely they're in the shower or having a walk or just making a coffee. Suddenly, the problem has been solved. Whereas if you just sit at your desk and try and think it out, there's too much going on. You're putting too much pressure on yourself, and I think we all need to learn to be a bit kinder with ourselves, and that in turn will hopefully, well, kinder with ourselves but kinder to other people within our teams, if we've got a team, to allow creativity to come out. Because when everything's too strict and mistakes are punished, then actually people are too scared to take a risk, and that's when you miss out on any of the good things that could be lurking there, but people have been too scared to bring them up.
Yeah, and as we said before, it's that thing about fun. If if you can make it fun, or make it seem fun, you've that's great. If you can make the thing enjoyable, and almost all the people who talk about creativity and how to get a creative they talk about fun. That's why you have. Yeah, that's why you gamify things, and to make them fun, and people will come up with great ideas if it's just fun. It's just fun. Yeah, but a lot of the great ideas that come there, are
That's where
fun.
they come from. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so enjoy yourself and have fun, and then creativity will spring. But you're absolutely right. I've had the same thing, that if you sit and go work and work and work, and I've got to come up with something. I've got to get this done. And by the time you're looking at your watch, you think, "Oh God, I've got a meeting tomorrow, and it's got to be out by 7." Best thing you can do is go and take half an hour off, go and walk in the garden, or yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
totally think
So
about something else. Your brain, your brain run offline. Actually, your brain doesn't need to keep. It's running there all the time. As you say, the reason why things happen uh, when you're in the shower or at odd times are actually because your brain's working all the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the subconscious there. Just because you're not aware of the little cogs spinning around doesn't mean they're not spinning around.
No, no. I always know if there's something that needs to be solved, plant the seed and then go and do something else, or even sleep. And it's amazing how many times the following day things are just a little bit clearer because your brain's been able to work and while it's resting overnight, and you haven't been swamping it with so much information overload, which I think partly we are a victim of now with the amount of technology and things that we've got that actually just need to switch off, and that's when actually your brain can do its best work.
Yeah, and we've all got to, as you said, find our ways to switch off. As you said, you can switch off and just go and do something else. Sometimes people need to actually do a totally different task. It's if you've got 3 jobs that you're doing and you're really struggling, I'll put that to one side job 1. I'll look at job 2 instead, and I'll come back to job 1.
Yeah,
there's no just because job 1 seems to be the more important one doesn't mean that while you're doing job 2, your brain's not working away there.
Working away on it. Exactly. Ian, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I've absolutely loved your story and your insights into things. And I think the thing I need to take away from that, and I think anyone listening should, is kindness will breed creativity. And I think if we can all be a bit kind on both ourselves and the people that we network with and work with and surround ourselves with, I think we're in for a better future. So yeah, thank you once again for joining me.
Thank you. It's been really enjoyable, Matt.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Balanced Ambition podcast. I genuinely hope the stories inspire you as much as they inspire me. If you found value in today's conversation, please share it with a friend. And remember, by subscribing, you won't miss an episode, and it would truly mean the world to me. Stay balanced, and I'll see you next time.